After handing billions of your hard-earned tax dollars over to the unions in bailout after bailout, now they want more. A whistleblower tells the tale of unions strong-arming businesses into unionization. Are they going to make you an offer you can't refuse? We're going to bring in Democratic strategist Leslie Marshall to tell us why it's not a problem for Tony Soprano to go out and say, unionize or else.
Eric, you've met my mom, and she's Sicilian, so I have an Uncle Tony Soprano. Well, this is really just a different way of doing things, Eric, and it's not Tony Soprano at all. First of all, you're talking about something that we've even heard will never be finalized. Second of all, not written by the current leader or leaders. And third of all, this is a different way of doing things in the sense that they're giving more confidence and more power to employees as opposed to just sitting back as in the former administration
but
and
Leslie,
saying we're just going to let the employers handle everything.
But Leslie, the story is if you didn't unionize, you may be under scrutiny for lawsuits, litigation. We may bury you in litigation.
But this is not something that's being practiced. This is something that was proposed, and something that was proposed not by the powers that be currently.
All right,
so why are we worried about something that woulda, shoulda, coulda isn't going to happen?
And let me ask you, because if they're willing to propose it, how do we know they're not going to practice it at some point?
Well, exactly. And the unions themselves have been doing this to employers for a very, very long time. I know I say it all the time, but gangster government. They threaten through litigation. They threaten through intimidation. And now it's just this proposal from the actual government instead of the unions that are going to be doing the real pressuring.
What about it, Wilcow? What do you think of this?
Well, the fact of the matter is these unions have done everything in their power to shut down communications between management and laborers directly, because any honest-to-God CEO or corporate manager would get up and say, you guys do this, and the factory might be in China.
Let me do
They'll
this,
call
guys.
that intimidation,
pull up that full screen if you don't mind. Maybe I didn't set this story up well enough at the very beginning. The Department of Labor whistleblower solicitor's strategy says, identify a public affairs liaison in regional offices, engage in enterprise-wide enforcement, deter employers through shaming. Julie Rodzinski, an embarrassing employer to unionize?
I'm not for it. I'm not. I don't agree with it. I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think unions have a function in life, but I also think that...
Okay, let's do that then.
Well,
what function?
What function do they have in life?
Where do we need a union? Where is it better? Where's a business model better with a union than without a union?
Eric, these people...
Just give me one.
A business... You know what? I have to think about that and get back to you.
All right, get back to me. Leslie, what about it? Which business is better with a union than without a union?
Oh, I can say tons. Sheet metal workers, steel, which I am a product of both my grandfathers. Because somebody has to look out for the middle class. Otherwise, we turn into the bourgeoisie, and that's why Marie Antoinette lost her head, may I remind you, Eric. The haves and the have-nots. There are a whole group of us in between.
You had your chance to tell me a good business, Brad. I'm trying to figure out why a sheet metal workers, the business, not the pay of the sheet metal worker, the business is better off with a union.
Well, first of all, you need to rephrase it and say the unions had a function. Okay, back in 1886, when Samuel Gompers founded the AFL, yes, they had a function. Conditions were poor. Upton Sinclair, the Upton Sinclair world existed. However, that was a long time ago. Unions, like a lot of would start off as socially good ideas, which have basically achieved their goals. The American right now, the American worker has better standard of living than any worker.
Wait a second.
Now
they're just.
Give me a business. Now I will tell you. I don't care what it is.
You want me to go through all the different unions?
You want to talk? Just give me
one. Well, fine.
Let's
go with the sheet metal workers, right?
Yeah. So tell me how they're better off. The business is better off.
The business? No, it's the workers I worry about, not the business.
Individual
and
rights
but let me tell you this. Why is Nike paying somebody 3 cents in China to make their shoes, right? They're not going to be able to do that in the States.
Because they're paying Michael Jordan to endorse it.
And they're not, correct. So that's great for Michael Jordan. It's great for Nike. How is that good for the people that work at these factories in the United States? That's why, you know.
These
what about the
union guys
pension
are
systems in the car companies?
They're making a killing, and they're making a killing with their pensions. You can't, you cannot
Listen, I am all for
that
union pension reform.
We should be whipping out the violin.
I am all for union pension reform.
You're for
But here's what I'm not from. The reason...
Guys, hold on, Leslie. So Julie brings up a point. We don't want to end up paying our workers 3 cents an hour. We're never going to do that because we have a minimum wage on top of that to ensure we don't do that. So where are we better off?
Well, quite frankly, the reason that we have factories overseas or call centers in Bangalore doesn't have to do with unions. And you want to blame the unions and throw them under the bus for this.
Well, then why?
It has to do with greed.
Leslie, why?
It has to do with greed and reducing the bottom line.
Right?
Right, and we get
well,
a
the
cheaper
unions
quality
price
and
themselves out of the job
return.
market here. And Leslie, you know it. If I have to pay a union telemarketer $15 an hour, I can pay him $5 an hour somewhere else. I'm going somewhere
Eric,
else.
I'm sorry, but with all due respect.
But you know what, Eric? Then you care about quantity over quality, which is something
I
Americans
see.
used to have.
Listen,
Wait,
I
wait,
see.
wait.
The non-unionized
Years ago, when I
workers
was
are
a kid,
quality.
when I was a kid, my grandmother would pick up whatever she was buying, flip over, and look at the bottom. Unless it was China, if it said made in China, she put it back. We don't do that anymore.
But that's
we buy what's
voluntary.
cheaper,
We're not even
and
talking
we're
about
not
the
getting
jobs
the
in China.
quality.
I'm talking about the construction workers, let's just say, here, who make much less than these union guys. It's where a lot of stimulus, shovel-ready projects went, and it's so much more expensive than the private guy who's working for a construction.
I'm sorry. The reason.
Hold on, guys. Go ahead, Leslie.
Well, first of all, that's part of what the America is about. Isn't that part of capitalism? You have the right to have contracts, to bid and to outbid, to be a part of the union or not. And let me remind you, when you talk about union strong-arming, how about the companies that strong-arm their employees that try to unionize? And that happens throughout the United States in
So
almost
Leslie, let me get this
every
straight.
area.
Let me get this straight. You're trying to make a case that in the free market we should have unions, because for me,
Yeah.
it's an oxymoron.
Get that either.
No, it is not an oxymoron, Eric. What I'm saying is there's room for both. There's room for companies that have union employees and room for companies that don't.
right.
That's the way America's been run and will continue to
Andrew,
run.
when a union, or when a federal employee, which is a federal union, is making double the amount that a private worker for the exact same job is making, and by the way, benefits sometimes 4 times as much as the private sector, how is that the free market?
It's not, and I would love to know why these union guys can't exist in a right-to-work state. Why is it every worker can't decide whether or not they want to be in the union? If the union is so wonderful, then it should be voluntary for every single individual, not the collective, because this is the private sector or in our lives, not in our politics. I don't understand, why is it every state in the union isn't a right-to-work state?
You know, let me just say this. This is absolutely a ridiculous argument. And
Really? Coercing your fellow worker into a union
No, I'm
is a
not talking about
ridiculous
coercing the
argument?
federal. No, what's a ridiculous argument is the fact that you're saying that, well, we have the minimum wage, so that's why we wouldn't ship businesses. Come on. The reason we
No, I said that's why we couldn't pay someone
The reason we
3
have,
cents an
yes,
hour.
the reason we have the minimum wage is because of unions. Because otherwise, if the free market.
Have you ever read the Wagner Act?
Sorry. Come on.
Don't laugh at me, have you?
No, I've never read the Wagner
Okay.
Act, but I also know exactly how we got the minimum wage, and I know what kind of lobbying went
So
into
the
it to
government
get
put
it.
itself on one side of the aisle here, on one side of the issue, because it was politically popular at the time.
Okay.
The Wagner Act gave all the power to labor and none to management.
Wait a
We're
second.
gonna have to leave it
Your
there.
own
We're gonna have to leave it there.
management-
Leslie
Yeah, okay.
Marshall's going to stick around for the next block. Remember when President Obama told us he wanted to freeze the pay of federal workers? Guess what? There's a huge thaw. We'll be right back. President Obama's proposed pay freeze for federal employees is, well, it's melting. Only in Washington is a freeze, not a freeze. Government workers found a loophole in the plan and are squeezing through it to get to your money. To the All-Stars and to Leslie Marshall. Leslie, what about it? Here they are. They figured out a way, Leslie, to get around the pay freeze. It's called STEP. So in other words, you work for a little while, you step up. You don't get a cost of living adjustment, but you step up. What a scam.
Well, yeah, I don't think scam. I got to give him credit for finding the loophole. Isn't that part of the American way? This is what I want, Eric. I want a pay freeze on every member of the House and the Senate, both Democrat and Republican, and the few little independents that we have there as well. But isn't that amazing that they say that we have such a problem with spending and we have to reduce the deficit, but they won't freeze their own pay? That's
Isn't
what
that
I'd like to
interesting?
see
Isn't that
before we
interesting?
go to the federal workers.
Go ahead, Ange. What about, please, they found a loophole. They found a way to figure out how to...
Shocking. There's a loophole in the government?
You know what the crazy thing is, Ange? They're not talking about a lot of money. They're talking about $2 billion a year. It's not like they're going to, solve the debt crisis with a pay freeze. They don't even want to participate a little bit.
I'll tell you what, I don't want a pay freeze. I want a pay cut. They should have been cutting from day one. And look, I do think, when Obama did this, I would high-five him for it. However, he's got to follow through. He needs credibility on this one. At a time when he needs it the most, this loophole does not make him
How about
look good.
cutting 20% of the federal pay? 2.2 million work for the feds. You cut 20%, 410,000 jobs. Get rid of them.
How about doing that for Congress? How about taking away their health? Wait a second.
Well, you don't like that one?
Wait a second. How about taking away their health care? The people that think government health care is the worst thing in the world.
Hey,
How about
Leslie,
the
you don't
fact
like
that they're
that? You don't like cutting it back to 2007, 2008 levels?
Well, first of all, Eric, what I'm hearing for the American people is create jobs. Do you want somebody to put a gun in their mouth and pull the trigger to add to the unemployment rolls?
Time out. Create private sector jobs, because federal jobs only cost us more. Private sector jobs, they don't cost us. takes 80 private sector employees to pay one Fed. Go ahead, Andrew.
Creating public sector jobs is easy. We could just ban ATM machines, self-use elevators. We can have rickshaws on every street corner. I mean, we can create jobs with the snap of a finger. Just don't let people cook their own breakfast. There's a million ways to create jobs if you really want to be creative. But this thing, here's what's going to happen. They're going to freeze the pay for grade 1 and then make everyone grade 2. Wow. You got to give them for the boxy, though.
Look, I think it's time that the federal government learn a little bit from the business community, and one of the things it should learn is that when your revenues are down, you have to cut costs, and one of the best ways to do it is cutting payroll, or at least freezing payroll. We've done it in my own company. My payroll has gone up and down relative to our revenues. Believe me, it's not the end of the world, and if the government and if we have to live under those rules of supply and demand and whatever you want to call it, economics, then why should the government be exempt just because it can create revenue at will by taxing?
Hey, Les, hold on. Let me get back to Leslie real quickly. You know, we don't have a problem creating federal jobs. They're very easy. In fact, federal employment's up 10%, while the rest of us have lost 7 million jobs in the recession.
See, what we're doing here, though, folks, is we're looking at these people as numbers, and we're looking at the numbers of those who make the most. We're not looking at the person who's struggling at the average income in America, some of those single parents with mouths to feed, etc. You're going to be paying one way or the other. Where are these people going to go? You don't have the jobs for them to go. They're going to go on unemployment. You complain about that. And then they go on welfare. You complain about that. So pick the battle.
Okay,
it's not a huge amount of money.
The holiday story, we heard this last year at this time with the GM auto workers. Remember, they need that bailout. I bring out my violin again. I do play violin.
So do Wall Street.
But you know what? Why don't we just give everybody a federal job? That worked out so well for the Soviet Union, right?
And by the way, Leslie,
I like the rickshaw program.
Yeah, I like his rickshaw
right
program.
now, and they're rioting in the streets.
Well, who was it? Which one of you on the panel said, sorry, because I can't see all you guys, which one of you on the panel said, we need to learn from the private sector?
That would be me.
I learned a lot from Wall Street. I learned a lot from Wall Street. I'm still trying to get my spa treatment at the Ritz-Carlton here
You're right.
in
You know,
California.
because that's all the business. You're right. Because
Guys,
that's every single business
Well,
is what
you know
is
what?
Lehman Brothers and
Hey,
AIG.
they gotta
Julie, we gotta leave it here, you
It's not
guys.
the
Sorry,
minute.
we gotta have to
Please.
leave it there. We're going to say
Stop
thank
with
you
that
to
caricaturing of American
Brad?
business, please.
Say thank you to Leslie Marshall. Up next, the president compares Republicans